Welcome to Community Talk Radio. This is Project Independence and You, Talk of the Town on LIU Public Radio. I'm Kristina Liu, along with my co-host today, Paula Ewell, who is the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Services for the Aging, and Otto Los, who is co-host, friend, volunteer, and PI ambassador. Thank you guys for joining us. Today is our 13th anniversary show.
Yay, thank you, Kristina.
Yes, quite a great first hour. We had Supervisor Jennifer DeSena join us, and there was so much information, so much going on in the town. We clearly could have used more than an hour to chat with her because there's a lot going on. But a special thank you to her for joining us in the fun festivities. So
it was a good chat.
Yeah,
right.
Excellent.
Really good stuff. Absolutely. Yeah. It just, it's so nice for her to come and, because you hear these things, but to like really know everything that's going on and things that the town is working on and different initiatives. So really, really good stuff, my friends. Yes.
Stuff. Yes.
It's just, it's one of my favorite shows. I love when this time of year comes, and I can't believe that, we're at 13, just blows my mind. And
I said it in the earlier segment, actually. I look back and I was 74 years old when I started with this thing, and I look back on it, it was a very interesting 13 years.
I mean, it just flew by.
Just the committee, the first committee that got before we were even live anywhere.
I mean, actually that part I was involved really right in the beginning with Madge Kaplan and Evelyn.
Yes.
I saw a little ad this big in the paper, local paper. They were having a meeting,
right?
And like 4 people showed up. And me and them, and a couple other people, but not many. And that's when they brought up the idea that there's a Newark.
And
that word to try it in New Hyde Park. And,
and the rest is history. But with the speaking of advisories, we talked about our advisory committees in the first meeting, and those meet monthly. So you can call 311 or 516-869-6311 to connect to an advisory. But the best ideas and programs for Project Independence came out of advisories, and the radio show was one of them, and it's Jerry Parrotsman, who, Jerry, we think of him special on this day, brought it up at a meeting. And, Dan and I laugh about this all the time because, he wanted it every day, which every time I hear that, I'm like, but, luckily Dan was like, all right, let's start with just, 2 hours on a Friday. And I really, he is not in here and he's got some nerve going out, but he's running around multitasking. But I have to give a special thank you to Dan Cox and LIU Post, really over these last 13 years. Dan, he's really just been such a support in everything. So
they've been here right from the start.
Yeah, that's right. And
the first planning meeting, Dan was there.
If Dan weren't involved.
No, and it worked. When we were, I remember when this initial idea came to us, it was going through a bunch of different schools where we were calling, trying to see where the fit. I mean, none of us, nobody came from a radio background. And I'll never forget too, Evelyn Roth, who will give her a special shout out to. Ev, who was, the mommy of Project Independence. Yes. And, she was the original host of the program before she retired. And, she said, okay, Kristina, I'm going to need you to produce the show. And I was like, I'm a social worker. But I was like, all right, let's make it happen. And
well, you latched onto it.
I think about, because speaking of, the 13 years, Otto, and just being at different point in your life, I mean, I was every anniversary, I always bring it up. I was like terrified of the radio show, but I was great behind the scenes. So no problem. I will schedule all day long. I will find, but then it was the fateful day. And I think it was, we were probably about maybe 6 months, a year or so in, and a guest didn't show up. And Ev was like, okay, so I'm just going to interview you. And I was like, what? What do you mean you're going to interview? And I remember coming in and sitting there, and I was like, my face was probably like beet red, and I was like having like palpitations and stuff.
Well, when we started, you would have 4 guests with short segments of 15
we would have
minutes.
15, which imagine now, right? So we've been doing this for so long. We can barely get anything out.
It wasn't a good idea.
Yeah. But we just, that was the original format.
Old-time radio.
Yes. Which was really nice. And we would, but it was just because I always look back at all the guests that we had over the years. And I will say it again, I said in the first segment, we've had 562 new shows and 1,178 different topics and segments, which is crazy, you know, and to look back and see all these, you know, memories and shows that we've had on. And what's so nice is to see the repeated guests that we've had, you know, throughout the years. You know, we certainly have our timely guests that we love to do. You know, we'll have Barry Klitzberg on, you know, every year. He like accepts it. He knows, like, he's, you know, part of it, right?
Keep your schedule
tis the
open.
season, you know, and
I think there's different categories of guests.
Yeah,
like Barry is a information, but a nice guy.
Yeah,
you know, and he's giving out information that's required. Not required, but it's good to know. You know, and then you have other people, it's more information, like entertainment kind of stuff. You know,
no, but that's what I say. It really is.
A lot of it is education.
It's all, you're right. At the end of the day, it's all education somehow. And of course, it goes to our favorite theme of all is preparedness. You know, I say, no matter what guests we have on and what kind of realm of things, you might not think it's going to be something in that world, but it leads up to that, you know, and somehow it's really about, you know, preparing your finances, preparing your health, preparing your family, you know, just because it saves you for so many, and that's for all ages, right? It's not, of course, it's, you know, our senior population, it's very, very important, but
maintaining your health.
Yeah, it's just exactly, you know, it's just these things. And it's just, you know, so much of, you know, since COVID, especially, you know, I always say that was our mental health, you know, therapy. And I think that conversation was really being brought up, you know, more and more. And it's certainly good to see now that it's as much as physical health, you know, it's the mental health piece that is certainly getting more press, and which is great. And in this show, we've had the fortune of guests who've come on who really talked about that, you know, how to, you know, de-escalate your stress, you know, different mindfulness and gratitude. And you know, just last week when we had on Dr. Carney, you know, was talking about the benefits of gratitude on your physical health, you know, it's, you know, I love this kind of whole person we're looking at now. And that's such a fun part of the show, is to have, you know, these kind of people on who talk about this. And just my favorite guest of all time, I mean, there's so many, right? You know, I went through all 1,178 shows. And Otto, you will be proud to know you have been on 260 new shows. So that's not including all the repeated shows that you've been on. You've interviewed 445 guests.
Wow.
And you've been a guest yourself 3 times. So look at it. And Paula, you have been 16 times as a guest on the show. And of course, you're new to co-hosting with us. So you've been here for 10 shows and 19 different segments. She is. Shout out to her.
The ropes.
You know, but I'm
watching you two and picking up some
pointers. You know what's so nice? It's, you know, Paula, every Friday, you know, I would come back from the radio show and be, oh my God, we have this guest. I'm all, you know, I'm all excited because that's, you know, how we leave the show. And that's always the best part of the show. So Paul has certainly been, you know, in our radio show family, but now we get to have her here with us on Fridays, which is,
I think
is really
Paula,
fun.
Pleasure.
Is a super professional with great empathy who's been behind the scenes.
See, Paul, we give a lot of compliments on the show.
But she's been a lot behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's finally time to come out.
Otto's going to crown you and give you a set.
I'm out of the office.
Paul said, put me back in ASAP. I don't know if I signed up for this. But it really is. It's just, it's so nice to, you know,
I'm an active listener also.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
To the show while I'm doing my work Friday mornings prior to being co-hosting with you. And so I could hear all the wonderful things, and I'd be taking my own notes, you know, but
no, and that's what my favorite part of the show. I mean, there's so many, I can go on forever, but what I love though is when we have a guest on, and even if it's an organization that we're kind of familiar with, you know, but then you're like, oh my God, I didn't know they did that. I didn't know they did that, you know, and to go back and share that information with our social workers, with our nurses, with the rest of the staff. You know, we always say we use that toolbox term, you know, constantly on this show. And
you know, what's a funny thing is, like, you're sitting here in a room, a studio. It's not very big. People can't see it, but here we are, and we have no idea who can hear us. Really, none. Right? It could be 10 people. It could be 30. So basically, the way I approach this thing, it's almost like having a conversation among ourselves.
But that's what makes the show, I think, relatable. And it was great at the advisory. And since we've been on North Hempstead TV, that's what's so wonderful, because it's really expanded the reach of the radio show. Because now it's not just you have to turn on the radio.
YouTube.
There's so many modes now, and our wonderful guests share the links, so it builds the network. But Paul and I at the advisory, we actually had a man come up to us asking for the Aging Revolution book. He's like, "Where can I get that book?" I was listening on the radio show,
and he was a new. That was the first time he came.
And it was just it was so because he listened to the show.
And that's what led him to
and he wanted the book, and it was just it's moments like that are just so really wonderful.
There was a letter that you sent around that was handwritten by a lady. Who enjoyed talking about the old days. She lived in Ridgewood. I lived in Woodhaven, and if you live long enough, you know a lot about what went on way back.
But I think that piece too, and that's what's so nice about it goes back to me being terrified originally, and to be on the show, and then I really was thrown into the show when are wonderful, and I will try not to cry throughout this because everyone knows I tend to cry during the anniversary shows, but our fabulous John Ryan, who had said to me, he's like, "All right, I think you need to do Talk of the Town. You need to do the second hour where you just talk about town things." I was like, "What, John?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "No, I think you'll be great. I think you'll just be wonderful." And he was, if anyone knew, the biggest cheerleader for anyone. Anywhere,
especially Project.
He is the champion, the cheerleader, and he, like, even to this day, like, we just had a guest on a couple of weeks ago who brought him up, so like, and I was just talking to his wife about his reach and his specialness. So shout out to our very own guardian angel there, but he had thrown me into it, and he's like, "You'll be great."
Well, John was very willing to share the stage, if you will.
The best.
He didn't want to be like
exactly. He was behind the scenes, but making sure everything's going. Even like any meeting you went to with John. He was and
just made. And speaking of feeling good, just made you feel good. You couldn't help but be around him and feel like a star. And was just incredible. And so he had enough, wherewithal that he had more faith in me than I had in myself, and was like, "You're going to be great, and this is a wonderful opportunity to talk about everything that's going on in the town." And he was certainly right. Because having this set, because there is so much, and that's why I said how we can't cram this into the show when you have a guest, and it really, I think we nailed our format now, to have the hour-long interview and then the hour of talking about the town and our personal life. But I think that what you're saying about the letter that I received, that was from a Talk of the Town segment, and I think that it's nice because people want to hear about nostalgia, and you certainly bring that to it, it's because you can say, "Oh, I mean, I know myself." You're saying, "Oh my God, I remember that," or, it's like all these things. And that's such a part of human nature. And I love that we're able to have that aspect of the show.
One of the things, like, you talked about looking back and trying to reflect on, and one of the shows that stuck in my head, which was kind of different, was when I had my relative Irene on the show, and we came from a completely different perspective. We had veterans on talking about World War II, but we talked to her about what was it like as a 17-year-old
living in that time, right?
And during that war in this country. And it was interesting looking back on it. She's no longer with us.
But that's, and that's what's, doing this show for so many years. But I always, and looking at the guests, I said, it's like a time capsule, in time, because, you get to doing a show for 13 years. There's a lot of years, right? Like that's a lot that goes on in 13 years. And especially during the COVID time where we were dealing with that in real time, and, the four of us were all in our home, me, you, John, and Dan, and we would sit there and we'd be like, all right, like working through our real emotions, on it. And I said, like, that in itself, it was but it was so relatable because everyone was just like in this state of, what do I do? How do I feel? And we were just being like honest. And I was thinking, to have this like special time capsule. Listen, we had an earthquake. Let's talk about that. Right. We were like here during an earthquake, right. Like, in the studio.
And you look back and it feels like it was hardly here.
Right.
Yeah.
And how many years was it?
Yeah. I know.
Couple too.
I know. I'm like, it's crazy because I'm just still only 20 years old. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff.
All your special birthdays.
Well, that's, and of course those were, some of the best too, is when we, got to incorporate, our family and our friends and you had your grandchildren on here, your kids on here, Otto. Like it was just
I realized that they've been on.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Dan's debuted grandbabies on the show, it's like, it's all these kind of, personal things that get brought into it too. But I think that's what makes it special. It's not just, we're not just giving you information, we're laughing, we're crying, we're doing it all. And living. Yeah, we're just right. We're just living. Exactly. We're just certainly living life.
A lot of it is for our own enjoyment, frankly. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be here doing this. Well, you would. You get paid. But
I wouldn't be having as much fun.
But not really.
Be getting paid to do this. So let's look at it that way.
But you do it because you really like doing it, and it's I believe helpful to educate people as much as people want to be educated. You have to want to learn about stuff,
And we learned so much.
I can't tell you, man.
It's amazing.
Things pop out of my head. And I'm thinking, like if you asked me to take a quiz on a lot of these shows that we've been through, I couldn't really do that. But collectively, collectively, there's like these pieces that stick in there and they come out sometimes.
Well, it's the golden nuggets, right? It's our coin term, which I wish I could like hire someone to just go through all the shows and just pull out like really the meaty golden nuggets. That is right, Otto. You know what? You might be onto something.
The book of golden nuggets.
You could say maybe go. I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to figure it out, Otto. We'll have to get on that.
Give
certainly.
Me all the golden nuggets.
Give me all the golden nuggets for 13 years of shows. But really, it really was just good stuff. Oh, Otto. But on that note, we're going to have to take a break. This is Kristina, Paula, and Otto. We're going to talk about everything that's going on in the town of North Hempstead and celebrating our 13th anniversary. You're listening to Project Independence and You, Talk of the Town on LIU Public Radio.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast, and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. Those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
Welcome back to Community Talk Radio. This is Project Independence and You, Talk of the Town on LIU Public Radio. Let's talk more about the town and our 13th anniversary. More importantly, which you were diving in. Our very own Wizard of Oz has re-entered our studio. So I'm not letting him.
But I heard you were talking about.
Yes, only good things. I was giving you, Dan, a special thank you and LIU.
Thank you.
Thank you for keeping the show going.
All right. Well, I'm gonna make her cry.
Oh God! Here we go. It's not a hard task.
Listen, I know over the years I haven't been your engineer for everyone. I've had students do it, and I hope to have students do it again because it's a really good experience for students to engineer this show. However, if it wasn't for you, this program, I would never have made it through COVID. I would never have made it. It was the worst time of my life. It really was, and I've had some bad times. But for me, it was coming towards almost the end of my career. I thought my career was over because of COVID, because of everything that happened. But doing this show every week was my life, my life preserver.
That's what I said. I said you debuted, grandbabies on our show.
I know.
There's been so many personal moments, and before when you were in, we were talking about John and just his impact in this program, and
I love that guy.
It just I said because we were talking about the
every week.
Well, that's what it's just it's a special thing. And time
you bring up a good thing that I really didn't think about, but during COVID, there really wasn't a whole lot of social outlet, if you will.
No.
And I think when we were on those shows, first of all, there was an adjustment in life that none of us have ever gone through.
Right, exactly.
For multiple reasons.
Exactly.
Right? The physical, the health, the whole bit. And then there was even the mundane idea of the technology that nobody ever used. I didn't use.
I didn't know what Zoom was. We never used Zoom.
All of a sudden, we're Zoom experts.
Yeah.
And we had to figure out, Kristina mostly had to figure out how to get all of our PI programs on Zoom. For people had no idea, and it was
it was a time, and that's what I was saying, Danny. I said the show is like a time capsule, of 13 years of just real life things. I said we actually had an earthquake, all together. We've had moments.
I'm waiting for locusts and
frogs. Right. I mean, we had some. Listen, who knows what year 14 will bring? But
no, listen, this show is important in more ways than one. I think I think people get a lot out of it because we give out a lot of great information. But for the people who've been on this show over the years, going all the way back to Evelyn and of course Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca and John.
And John.
Yeah.
Who I miss very much.
Yeah.
This is a very special show.
Yeah.
It really is.
It is.
And I'm happy to be a part of it. I hope to be a part of it for a little while longer.
No, hold on. We're gonna call a timeout on that. He goes, I hope you will be, because I also want to be clear. Our fearless leader, Dan, even during his retirement stint, we'll put in quotes, he still did this show. And then he just got right back in, he couldn't stay retired too long. And I think this show really just, put his foot in the water and you had to dive back in. There you go.
I was in the water and you guys threw me a life preserver and pulled me out. So and I owe a lot to this show. I owe a lot to you, Kristina, for the work you've done over the last 13 years. No one, it's funny because I tell this story to others because we're sitting out here yesterday with some alumni who we all worked in television, not together, but we've all worked in television. And this is going to insult people out there who've done this, but television producers, especially on television producers, especially on news programs, are idiots. Okay, unfortunately, and we all, not all of them, but we've all worked with one, right? Where you just go into the show and you're like, my God, where are we going? And they're not planned, they're not organized, they don't do the bookings, they don't do anything. You had no experience whatsoever in producing any kind of show. And yet you have done an incredible job.
I was afraid we were going to lose her to the show.
Listen.
I was like, Kristina.
I once told her, I said, because I was in politics for a while. I said, if I get elected somewhere else, I'm going to steal you from the town of North Hempstead because I think you should. I think the town of North Hempstead should be worried that someone will understand what this young lady can do and steal her because she's. I've told them yesterday.
We've had enough of that.
She said, cut the mic.
No,
Paula stepping and cut the mic.
Stealing.
No, it's just I've never worked. I've worked with a lot of producers in television and in radio, and she kills it. She kills it every week.
Because I have a solid team, and Dan, I learned so much, from you and your experience, and it's just, it's a family, right? It's like it's really an extension that we've been through over 13 years, so much stuff together, happy and sad, and just monumental things in life, and it's just really cool to get to be a part of this.
It's kind of fitting though, because this is homecoming weekend, and
I'm
looking out to the lobby,
and you know what?
All these people,
once again, I love when things just work out, right? That's my favorite thing.
One of the things we've all said over the years is that once you work at WCWP, you're in.
You're in
for life.
It's
you
true.
can't leave. It's a really hard place to leave.
Well, that's what I love. I say to guests on the show, I said, "You're welcome to the family. You're going to be back 10,000 more times."
I sometimes joke we're the coolest place on campus, and we are.
I'm going to have to. And I've been to a lot of cool places, guys, and I'm going to have to say that this is one of my favorite things to do.
Good things that happened because of COVID, if you recall, I used to maybe be every 4 weeks or something.
Yeah, you were only once a month.
That's right.
And once COVID hit,
I thought you forgot about that, Otto.
Once COVID hit,
right.
it was decided to make it easier from a technology point of view, to have one person doing it.
Yeah.
And I
permanent co-host
for the other co-hosts who also like doing it, but I have to be honest about the fact that I'm kind of glad I've been doing it every week.
Right. Well, we put the word permanent in front of co-host.
Yeah, we didn't really ask you.
Me
and Dan kind of just made an executive decision on that.
Yeah, like Kristina, what do you think? Oh yeah, Otto.
Yeah, Otto. Because, and this is, Otto, you, my friend, are such an inspiration. We make jokes every week saying that, when we grow up, we want to be you. But that's true.
I'm closer to him than you are. Right?
I talk about you all the time in my personal life too. And I say, I've never related more to a person. I say, because I laugh because one of my little nieces, I said, is a mini me. And I feel like I'm her and I feel like I'm you. I said, I have my 86-year-old, 86 or 87-year-old friend over here who, we're so similar in so many ways in our outlook and our approach and our love of bulleted lists as well. But it's just, there we go. The two of us, we're twins, we're holding up our bulleted list together. But you
vary the bullets sometimes.
Me too. I change it up. Yeah, we keep it fresh, Otto. But it's just so great to spend my Fridays with you. I see you, often at different PI stuff too. But the fact that every Friday we get to spend time together and you impart your wisdom with us, with the audience. It's stuff that really sticks with me forever.
I don't think a week goes by where I don't tell an Otto story.
Yeah.
It always starts with, I got this friend Otto I work with on the radio show. Yeah. He's 80.
Yeah.
I made you 88 last week. I apologize.
I think
88 next week. I said next week. Yeah, next week.
Years old. And this guy's got it so together.
Yeah.
I said, I'm an idiot compared to this knucklehead.
Yeah.
But he sometimes is a pain in the butt. But otherwise, he's funny, he's charming. And he's some
luck involved, but
you come up with common sense solutions to things that oftentimes I don't think of and other people think of, and that is a function for me personally of the fact that you have you're an older man and you understand, you have more experience than I've had, and I'm only 25 years behind you, but it's still, I think that's the beauty of this show.
Yeah,
we bring a wealth of experience from the youngest person on the panel to the oldest person.
That's why I hang out here, guys.
Sometimes you look at this room sometimes and there's 4 generations of people here, and we all get together. And I think you mentioned it earlier with the supervisor, this is not a senior radio show. No. It's a community radio show, and the community is what's so important.
Yeah.
So we cross boundaries because I have a friend who's headed into being in that middle space where he's got kids, but he's also got aging parents he's got to take care of. And
that's
he listens to the show because he knows that there are things on this we're going to talk about that are going to help him.
Yeah.
I just helped a fella out when we did the elder care thing the other day. I gave the card to him and he's off doing that. So there's a lot of reasons. And don't get me started on Klitzberg. I've given Klitzberg's name to everybody. And everybody loves that guy.
Barry gets a lot of plugs on this show.
This show is extremely important for those who listen to it, and I wish we had more listeners. I wish we had more people tuning in.
That's an interesting thing, there's really no way of measuring.
Not really. No.
But you know what it is though, but my whole thing is this is how I live life in general, right? Of course you want to reach a bazillion people, which is the goal. But what's so nice, I was sharing, it's those little moments that come up to me, those letters I get in the mail, from people that you have helped their life a little better, and especially during North Hempstead TV, having this on North Hempstead TV is wonderful because it really opens up. There was a woman I remember she had called me and, she was taking care of her daughter that had some developmental disabilities. And she's like, they would watch the show together every week. And it was just cool, so here's like, this, they were getting something out of this too. And I think you don't realize a lot of times, which I'm a firm believer in, like what your reach is, and it's happened so many times. I talk about this all the time with my mom because you don't realize the impact you might have made on someone's life. You have no idea.
And we're branching out once again because the podcast has started to be posted. They're 4 years old right now, but they will get closer and closer. And eventually The episodes will be every week.
Yeah.
As soon as it drops, you'll get
cool.
you'll get the
I
newest
can't
one.
wait to subscribe to our podcast.
As Otto has said earlier, you know, we all need to learn the technology, and podcasting is an incredible technology. It's an incredible distribution system to your phone or to your computer. So I'm hoping that expands again our reach once more.
Yeah, it's really exciting new initiative. And I'm going to go over to our newest co-host, Paula, who is not new in my life, but new to being on the show. Goodness. You know, when I started with PI over 14 years now, Paula was just my supervisor, and this is gonna make me cry. Here we go, guys. It's starting again.
I remember you sitting in the around
of the north,
like by the wall.
Yes, right. I have that memory too.
And they introduced an intern from Adelphi, and that was like a big deal back then because there weren't that many people. You know? And you know, for whatever reason, you stuck in my mind. Aww, and then you wound up staying with the program,
I never left your mind. You know, I said I met Otto, and I was like, that's it. This is my guy. But you know, Paula, we have shared. You know, we are not just, you know, you're not just my supervisor. You're my friend, my work mom. You're my every. You know, you're just.
We've been lucky.
We've been through so much.
Kristina all week long.
Yeah, it's just it's so special. You know, we're the social work, you know, team together, and learn
team social work.
The whole team,
right? You know, there's no I in team.
Yes, right,
but no I in team. You know, we have been through so much, you know, together professionally and personally together, and it's just it's so fun to get to hang out with you on Fridays. You know, I was saying, you know, it's just. I would always come back and tell Paula about the guests that we had that day. And it's fun that you're here to, you know, to be a part of it and to share in really the amazing experience this is. So now that I got that out of my system, guys, I mean, my gosh, it was really, even just writing this, I was crying, you know, it's just so, you know, I always call this my baby, and it's a very special part.
Let me ask you, like you get people on this show every week, and you're usually a couple of 2 months out. Talk a little bit about
how you do
what you have to do for that, and how
that process.
How do you get the people and
it's a lot of harassment of it. I'm persistent,
right?
If anything. Listen, it was a lot harder when we first started out because, you know, we were newer, you know, luckily now that the show has been around for so long, you know, there's more of a familiarity in it, you know, amongst people, and a shout out to our staff who that when they go out to different programs, they meet people. You know, I got a bunch of possibilities from a health fair that our Shari Baton, our mobility manager did, along with, you know, our two social work, nurse did, and they all each separately sent me emails saying, oh my God, I met this great person, here's this business card, you know. So I love that, right? So because that's the best. And I love when people, if you are listening, you have someone that you know that would be great for the show, call 311. I would love to, you know, I love having that. And then of course I love when you come to me, Otto, and say, I saw this article, track this person down, because then I get to like be, you know, a detective. I feel like we're in only murders in the building. Well, frankly, I always say that. I say I'm Selena Gomez, you know, and Otto's, you know, has a combination of.
Was, you would probably get her anyhow. But there was the big article.
Exactly. So it's stuff like, you know, that, and it's hard, right? Because people are busy. Not everyone checks their emails as promptly as I would like them to. But what's nice is that I, you know, have these relationships, and I am persistent, as I said. You know, I'm big on the follow up. So it's fun to do it, and I like that when I make a connection with an organization, they also say to me, oh my God, I know someone else, you know, that'd be so great for the show. And I'm like, send them my way. You know, it's just, it's really fun. And I love how this show, you know, when we started out, it was obviously a lot of like medical topics or, you know, really like heavy senior base, which is great, which we still do. But what's fun now, like just this year alone, when I was going through, our notes, we've had 10 authors on the show just this year.
I remember just like authors
for Tina. Shout out to Tina Mosettis, who is my favorite PR guru. But I was going through and I was like, oh my God, there's been 10 like and really different books and topics, and it was just, I love having them on because it's like a different world, but it still just so ties into, you know, just inspirational stories and how you live your life and overcoming, you know, different challenges. And
you really it's see just how
really cool.
Aging is dynamic. Aging
right
is
exactly
you're aged or
we're
you're
older
old,
now
or
than
you're...
we were when we walked in here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh my God, I'm stressed out now.
And you look at it, you know, that we work with people from 60 through 100, like a 40-year age span of your lifespan, and what happens in 40 years, just unbelievable.
It's like going from 20 to 60.
Yeah.
Did anything happen during that period of time?
And Kristina ties it all together.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you guys.
Yes.
After the break, we're going to continue celebrating our 13th anniversary of our radio show and talk about some upcoming stuff. Luckily, the first hour we were able to do some upcoming stuff because right now we're just full celebration mode. You're listening to Project Independence and You Talk of the Town on LIU Public Radio.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
Welcome back to Project Independence and You Community Talk Radio. This is Talk of the Town on LIU Public Radio. We're going to keep on celebrating our 13th anniversary, which is a major accomplishment with all the great guests that we're celebrating, just memories and guests and funny times. And I mean, you know, just some of the top, we've had medical people, we've had mental health, authors, comedians, entertainment, safety, government officials, transportation, scams, interesting people, technology, finance, elder law, nutrition, social work, nurses, holidays, chefs. I mean, we've really been all over the place, which is fun because, you know, we're giving you information about all aspects of your life.
I like the ghost countries.
You know, every anniversary, it gives me a good chuckle when it comes up that we had, you know, because listen, I love a spooky story. Right. I was like, well, tell me what's haunted. Right. Our host at the time, Evelyn Roth, was not quite as interested in the, you know,
one of my favorite days.
The things of ghosts. You know, she had this look on her face that it was really not quite a poker face, quite the opposite actually. And you know, we all wanted to laugh
what
at
Ev
that.
was thinking.
You wanted.
Listen,
she wasn't into.
I don't know if you talked about it before I came back in the room, but one of my favorite moments, and there were multiples of them. If you had a guest on who was talking about any kind of love or relationships, John would just turn beet red. He didn't know what to ask him. He was so embarrassed by it. He was such a sweet guy.
Well, my favorite, he would because we had Fran Green, Fran Green multiple times on the show because she came up as my favorite, you know, one of my top guests of all time is Fran Green, who, you know, is just, she's been with Project Independence for so long. I'd love to schedule her again. And she does a lot of, she wrote a book on relationships and kind of how to, and she's hilarious.
What did she write? The flirting
Bible.
The flirting Bible. Yes.
The flirting
I think that's
Bible.
what really.
I think
and
he didn't know what to ask.
I have to say, was quite impressed with Otto's skills. She thought Otto had some solid flirting skills.
Flirting with Otto.
My dear friend John was, on the other hand, completely mortified with a red face, and which was always the funniest part of everything. You know, we've had some topics that he really struggled to get through because he was so embarrassed, but you know, I
enjoyed recently we had this Roger Hendricks on,
and Otto's buddy.
Basically we didn't really do anything other than entertain each other, talking about old baseball and stuff, but he was a good example.
So he was just one, because he also was on my top list because it was just such an inspirational segment. And I just love, you know, even any of the guests that we have. One of my favorite questions that John always started, and I try to take that with me, you know, is to find out how someone got into the career that they're in. Because I always find that an interesting piece, and you get such a full picture of someone. You know, of course you could hear, okay, it's my job, but like, how'd you get there? You know, and the story of getting there is always so interesting. And Roger Hendricks Simon this year had such an incredible.
I think I missed that show.
Yeah, he was so great. And the other one that we did, Otto, together, was Dr. Sarah Glass, who did survival tips for leaving unhealthy relationships, and she told her story about, you know, her struggles in an extreme sect of the Hasidic community, and it was so we were fighting back crying.
I actually had made a point. I try most of the time. My children really don't listen to these shows. That doesn't mean that they're not interested, but they
it's
got
a lot,
lives in their work.
Right, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot to listen to 1,000 shows.
I sent to all of them, and I said, I think you should listen to this one, and it was really very, very informative in terms of, if you think you've gone through troubles, listen to this.
So
story.
about like resilience.
It's how she,
she grew up in a Hasidic environment in Brooklyn, and you know,
extreme. And she wrote a book about you know, and you know, the abuse that she suffered and things, and she came out as gay, you know, and it was it was her story to get there.
It was like a lot of things.
It was just so much. It was like we couldn't even. But
she was forced to get married, basically, and live with somebody. And
Otto like asked her really honest questions, and I think that she really, because after I talked to her, she's like, it was just so nice, you know, going back to the different generation pieces of things. She said it was just so cool to have, you know, people who are just part of different generations. And Otto was asking, you know, open and questions to her, and she was answering them. So it was really an incredible,
she was willing to talk about it. So, you know,
and we've had great, and we had on Mildred Kirschenbaum and her
100 years
and
old.
and her daughter Gail, who we've had on before, and they talked about, it was called Mildred's Mindset Wisdom from a Woman Centurion, and it was, so their relationship, you know, was complex.
What struck me with her was one thing that really stuck in my head. She had PT in her home.
Yes.
All right. And the thing that she's got PT, she's got to do this. The big thing she asked the PT person to do was show her how to get up if she fell in every room in her house.
Yep.
Wow.
Right?
Yep.
And I thought that was, you talk about planning, preparation.
Yeah.
And if you think about it,
it was genius.
It really
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was such a golden nugget, because it really, because listen, it's such a different ball game, you know, okay, like this room, you know, you might, okay, there's a chair, you know, there's a grab bar there, you know, you can kind of like figure it out. But, you know, I think about my grandfather, you know,
who would think about that?
Other rooms, it was, she was incredible. I mean, I remember just belly laughing hard through a lot of things.
But
she
that
was coming
stuck
out
in
with.
my head. I'm saying, that makes a lot of sense. You talk about common sense solutions. That's common sense. You know?
Yeah, and we had on Elaine Franklin, who was an author who wrote the book Once Upon a Time in Beverly Hills, who actually zoomed in from Beverly Hills to chat with us. And she was another one that just had me laughing very, very hard. So there was just such, and you know, and like, it was fun to have them on, because it might not have been a specific, you know, seniors, but here were these seniors who are out there, who are like, you know, and a lot of their careers, it was a second, you know, win. It wasn't their main thing, you know, which is my favorite story, you know, and that's something that John also loved, was that, you know, changing your path, you know, like later in life. And it's such a cool message, because it's, you know, it's never too late to try something new, to learn something new. And I think, you know, Otto, you say that all the time with this show, right? It's to learn something.
Not quite like Colonel Sanders.
Colonel Sanders.
I love it. But yeah, just really, in this year, I mean,
if you think about it, you, me, all of us, except for Dan, were complete neophytes in this world.
Yeah.
You know, I did a lot of communicating and whatnot in my business life, but this is different.
Oh,
yeah.
You know? Yeah. I never thought I'd have to be involved.
Except Paula was.
I remember,
oh gosh, here I am.
I would go to the planning meetings with Ev when we were in the Rosalind office, and I'd sit and listen and take notes. Oh, this looks so interesting. It's going to be great. Great, Ev. Go back up to my office.
Here you go.
So you just don't, you know, what to expect.
You know, some of the older shows that remember Bernice Sims.
Oh yes,
who had a civil rights show.
Yes,
which was really,
because North Hempstead did that wonderful documentary.
A really good, honest dialogue.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about this, is that a lot of times, you know, in your real life, you can't really have conversation with somebody about a topic. They just don't want to talk about it.
Right.
No. You know?
And we also have time. That's the other nice part. You know, like we're sitting having a conversation. You know, and you have the time to do it. So that's really special too.
No, it is.
Yeah, and we're usually not having 2 conversations or 3 at the same time.
Yes.
Which happens.
Which you summed up my Friday night just right there.
well, it sounds like mine a lot of nights too. You have 7 people in there, 3 conversations.
Yeah. Forget it.
Very hard with hearing aids.
Yeah. I listen. I believe it because it's certainly it's tough and it's just nice. And Dan, you missed it. We were talking earlier about when we had 15-minute interviews in the beginning, which was the marathon of life.
Right.
If you think about it, one like I'm always make a little note, like you want to say something, but at least here we have the luxury.
Yeah.
I
think that's why I became so impressed with her as a producer. How you could get 4 people,
I don't know,
to come to this campus to talk for 12 and a half minutes.
I don't know.
Every week.
Good question. I would never do that now. I'd be like, that's an absurd ask. That is a crazy ask.
We had somebody talk about the sand miners monument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a gastroenterologist. We had a judge talking about traffic and parking.
We've had a few judges, I think, over the years. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, just so many different things.
Sleep disorders.
Well, I actually have a note stuff. I want to do another sleep one.
But one of the things I also like is, yes, we have but you also book guests like a Barry Klitzberg every year.
Yeah.
At the same time during that.
So
and a couple of years I'm going to be doing that. So
Yeah.
Barry and I are going to become good friends.
Right.
So my point is that while we may repeat guests,
they're
done for a
yeah,
reason,
right?
But they're done for a reason, and that's another good producer.
Well, there are changes.
Yeah, another. That's what a good producer does. They'll bring back somebody who's the Medicare thing is just it has to happen every year because they change every year.
Well, and then there are new people getting into it.
Exactly.
Every year.
No, and sometimes you just need these refreshers because, like I said, being in this bill, I learn something every single show. Right? I said to Paul, I know Family and Children Association. We worked with them forever.
Right.
I literally, every time I sit down with Family and Children Association, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know they do this.
Right.
I didn't know, and that's what's great about, having these relationships with these organizations, because we're all evolving and learning new things. And you need these little, really refreshers of knowledge.
Connecting point out.
Exactly.
Geriatric or with elder care, where all organizations we've had it the one time that we can all be together to share what's our own resources and people you might work with for a long time, you've never met them, and now you meet them, you're here on the radio, and you get
it's like a whole new world. Absolutely.
And most people talking about their own lives, and it just so broadens.
Well, it's not like a competitive world of business, like when 2 companies don't want to talk to each other.
Right, it's just the opposite.
This whole thing here is that, okay, we do something like you do,
right?
But we do this, so let's work together,
right?
Because the goal is to help people with whatever, whatever the problem is.
I mean, it really is, the term human service is just perfect, because it's everything. It's not just one thing. And, going back to just to comment real briefly that, you don't know how many people are listening, and there's no really way to measure it, quantify it. But I remember in social work school, and hopefully this got passed on to all the interns, is in our field, especially in social work, you can be doing work. You will never know if it had an impact on someone. But many times it will have a very significant impact on someone, but you don't get that feedback loop of, I did a great job today.
Right. They're not filling out a questionnaire, after.
But so you start to learn to accept that, you do your best, you put all the good out there, and the hope is it's going to help people.
Many times life-altering
and I mean
support, if you will.
And that's the program also. It's like you don't know at what point someone's going to need us in some capacity, and knowing that we're here. Remember we did the Hofstraat when they followed us for the data. What came back to us is that knowing that we exist as a program was the most important part at that point.
Yeah, because it's like a security blanket.
It is.
It's having that insurance policy.
I know who to call.
That. There's a lot of terms that I hear, and they stick in my head. And one that I heard by somebody here is therapeutic housing in one of the shows that we did. And I thought a lot about that afterward, all right? We used to have housing for people who have mental health problems where they're a danger to themselves, they're a danger to society. And then we decided, with all our great wisdom, that we didn't need that stuff, so we shut everything down.
Right.
Now, part of that was my judgment. This is all my judgment. Is that we used the wrong terminology when we were doing that. It was a nut house, an insane asylum, blah, blah. And when I heard those words, therapeutic housing, I said, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And we see every day now in society, people who could use therapeutic housing.
And a lot of people don't know about it. Yes.
And society, frankly.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
In a humane way.
Yes.
And
it's a different way of talking about something that's
I mean,
very
talk about
important.
Education to me, that was just like two words that stunk.
It's interesting.
They stick. And I've mentioned it to people many times.
Yeah.
You know, but we haven't. I don't hear it. I never heard the word again, ever, anywhere.
Yeah.
And we need it.
Yeah. We need more.
Yeah.
Well, that's
there's not a lot. Yeah.
We need it. I mean, and we had it, but it was like inhumane the way we had it.
Yes. Oh
I say now we need to have humane therapeutic housing.
Yes.
Absolutely.
For everybody's sake, for the people's sake who have the problem.
Yeah. I don't know. Was that EAC who was on with us about they have turquoise?
Yes,
house
turquoise. It was during our mental health first aid training. We had which. That was another one of my favorite guests because Jeannie Cacciatore, who is from Family and Children's Association, she did a training for us. It's our staff people on getting trained in mental health first aid, and then I brought her on the show.
She was wonderful.
And to me, that segment and of course the training, more in depth is just so important for everyone, especially in this time, and I think, listen, it's human nature to have your judgments or your beliefs. But I think, this really taught you kind of just how to, and I try to really incorporate that in just personal situations. It doesn't even have to be, as something as dramatic as where you need to like really enact this, like just dealing with people who are struggling, and kind of what the right things to say, because like certain things that you might not, you think you're helping,
you
but
do the exact opposite.
Well, I think in some ways we're maybe subconsciously or consciously trying to take away stigmas of some things that are mental health problems. And there's a lot of stigma connected to a lot of it. And I think some of what comes out of, at least to me, and hopefully people will listen, is that we're helping kind of soften these stigmas. There's a lot of tough people have a tough attitude, I did it, I can do, you can do it.
I think
just
younger people have improved.
It is. And I say, I know that things are changing because all the little people in my life, in their schools, it's more of a conversation now. So they're talking about, mental health and stress and mindfulness and yoga. Right. So and I think that, from you start getting that in, then it starts changing, the wave of things. It's not overnight, obviously, there are certain people who are going to have their feelings, but I think that that's what's nice is that it's certainly, and I've heard, these terms, are becoming, and I just seen in Project Independence alone. I said this before, when I first started, we didn't have that many mental health programs because people were kind of hesitant to come and I don't want, And now when we had the advisory, I mean, the questions that were coming out from people openly in an open forum was really cool. And I was saying like, look here, this shows the difference, as well.
My granddaughter, who both of you know, who works in the school over here, is working on getting an intergenerational thing together for.
That's wonderful.
Oh, cool.
And she's talked to the muckety mucks, and they're all in favor of it. So
cool.
Hey guys, sorry to say, but we are running out of time.
Oh my gosh, we are right. Our wizard.
I will say one thing.
He's coming in. Go ahead.
Please stay tuned because homecoming weekend starts in 2 minutes, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Cool. Well,
and thank you for 13 wonderful years.
13 years. Cheers to 14. Thanks for listening to Project Independence in You, Talk of the Town. I'd like to thank Paula and Otto and Dan and all of our listeners, all of our supporters, all of our past hosts and co-hosts, and you all made the show what it is. Project Independence in You is a production of Long Island University Public Radio. Join us next Friday at 10 a.m. on LIU Public Radio. Goodbye and have a great weekend.